Hereby I open this academic ceremony at Maastricht University. First I would, my name is Ton de Goeij. I am the Pro-Rector and the Chair of the Degree Committee. First of all, I would like to welcome Mr. Uthman Albakri. He will defend in public his academic thesis, which is called Improving Sleep Quality in Nurses Who Work Irregular Shifts, Necessity and First Steps Towards Intervention. Welcome all members of the Degree Committee, and in particular the three supervisors who are sitting opposing me. Dr. Ray Meertens, she is Associate Professor of Health Promotion at Maastricht University. Professor Eimert Kant, he is Professor of Occupational Epidemiology at Maastricht University. And Dr. Andrea Gabriel, he is Assistant Professor in Statistics also at Maastricht University. I will introduce the 5 opponents later during the ceremony, because reading all those names at this moment you will certainly forget, so I do it later. Welcome to you here in the audience, and I would like to welcome also all the followers of the live stream. Mr. Albakri, may I invite you to give a summary of your thesis, and I wish you success in the coming hour. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Dear Pro-Rector, dear member of the Degree Committee, dear family, friends, and colleagues, in the next 15 minutes, I'll be summarizing my thesis findings. During my bachelor's and master's studies, behavior like diet and physical exercise often received a significant attention, with the most example and case study focusing mostly on these issues. While these topics are undoubtedly important, it led me to wonder, is it sleep an important lifestyle behavior as well? Relatively recent scientific evidence showed that sleep is essential for health and well-being, aiding memory, learning, and recovery, while poor sleep is linked to chronic illnesses like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and depression, as well as accident and cognitive impairment. Globally, sleep problems are widespread, affecting millions and incurring significant economic cost. Therefore, promoting sleep health is crucial to improve overall well-being and addressing its health impact and economic as well. While sleep health is important for the entire population, aspect of sleep warranting attention from a public health perspective related to shift work. Working night shifts disrupt circadian rhythm, affecting hormones, which may increase the risk of cardiovascular and gastrointestinal disease, depression, and fatigue. Irregular shift, which lack consistent pattern and involve frequent transition between day, evening, and night shifts, may exacerbate these impact. Irregular shifts are different from irregular shift types of shift work, since employees in irregular shift have to adapt more often to the circadian disruption than employees in irregular shifts. Consequently, irregular shift work is expected to have a higher impact on health as compared to regular shifts type. Furthermore, irregular shifts work is highly prevalent among nurses. The lack of stable sleep-wake cycle might lead to circadian misalignment, greater recovery needs, accumulating sleep debt, and increased health risks. These challenges underscore the importance of addressing sleep health, particularly for nurses working irregular shift who face unique vulnerability. Several strategies have been suggested to improve sleep health. However, to mitigate the impact of such a shift type, specific strategy for nurses working irregular shift are limited. Also, there is a lack of evidence-based strategy specifically tailored for nurses working night shifts, with the most intervention focusing on general shift work or single approaches. Therefore, personalized strategies are essential, as effectiveness can vary based on factors like age, gender, and genetics. The main aim of the thesis is to contribute to the improvement of health and well-being of nurses working irregular shifts by preparing, designing, and pilot testing sleep health promotion interventions. However, before explicitly choosing for this objective, we wanted to get a general overview of the field and to identify the specific target group we should focus on. As we reviewed the literature, we found that significant work has been done to improve sleep quality and/or duration in a healthy population. So the first aim is to summarize the scope of the scope and effectiveness of non-pharmacological sleep intervention in healthy population. After identifying the target group, we examined the prevalence of poor sleep quality among nurses working irregular shift and its relation to the need for recovery. Then we wanted to know how nurses working irregular night shift cope with such shift type, to gain a new insight into how the sleep quality of nurses possible could be improved. Lastly, after identifying possible effective strategy, we developed and pilot test a personalized intervention to improve sleep quality of nurses working irregular night shifts. To address the first gap, an umbrella review was needed to know what has been done, as the review would serve as a useful introduction to this emerging field of research. Promoting healthy sleep is expected to gain increasing attention in the coming decade. While numerous systematic reviews have evaluated intervention to improve sleep quality and duration, there is a lack of overreaching umbrella review summarizing these efforts. Such a review is essential to provide a comprehensive overview of a sleep health promotion, including the scope of interventions, target groups, settings, and their effectiveness. The findings highlight different sleep health interventions that were conducted more than others interventions, including multi-component interventions, sleep educations, and behavior change methods and relaxation techniques. The review found that the adult group was the primary focus of these interventions, with some targeting school-age children and infants. Furthermore, the result identified 3 intervention types, including behavior change methods, mind-body exercise, and later school start times as the most effective interventions for improving sleep quality and/or duration. To conclude, the scope of included reviews varied significantly, reflecting a wide range of study design, target populations, and intervention types. While the most effective intervention types were highlighted, other approaches such as relaxation techniques also show promising impact on sleep. However, due to the high heterogeneity in the study designs, outcome measures, and the population conclusion should be interpreted with caution. In the end, this umbrella review serves as an important first step toward a deeper understanding of sleep health promotion. Now let's zoom in on an important target population, which is nurses working irregular shift, including night shifts. Shift work has been widely associated with a poor sleep quality among nurses in general. According to Knud's model, this is caused by 3 main factors, including mismatched circadian rhythm, behavior changes, and disrupted socio-temporal pattern. Sleep is essential for the body recovery process, as the need recovery is closely linked to critical health outcome, including severe long-term fatigue-related disorders such as burnout and subjective health. As such, the need for recovery serves as a proxy for these serious health risks, highlighting its importance in evaluating overall health. This study investigate the sleep quality of nurses working irregular shift and to determine whether poor sleep quality is linked to increased need for recovery among nurses working irregular shifts. We found that nurses working irregular shift, including night shift, report significantly poorer sleep quality compared to those working irregular shift without night shift. Also, we found that night shift nurses also experienced more difficulties in the daily functioning compared to the other group. Additionally, we found that sleep quality was significantly associated with the need for recovery, and this relation remained strong even after controlling for confounding variables. To conclude, results showed that the lower the sleep quality, the higher the need for recovery nurses experienced after work, and the findings suggest that a high need for recovery among nurses may be prevented partly by interventions that improve their sleep quality. As there was a limited knowledge in how these nurses mitigate the impact of working irregular shift, particularly night shift nurses, it's important to understand how good sleepers approach working irregular night shifts compared to poor sleepers. As I said before, it's not really clear what tips would help them to sleep better. Seeing what strategy good sleepers use and poor sleepers do not may be a source of inspiration for what could help. While general suggestion and strategy exist for night shift workers, there are no definitive or tailored strategies specifically designed for nurses working irregular shifts. Therefore, the aim of the study is to assess the sleep strategy that nurses work irregular night shift use to improve their sleep quality, and to compare the strategy of good and poor sleeper to determine whether the differences between the two groups could provide insight into possible effective strategies. The good sleeper and the poor sleepers, we selected them from the sample of the previous study and then we interviewed them. There are three main themes emerged from the interviews, including strategy and lifestyle behaviors to prepare for the night shift sit, a strategy and lifestyle behavior during a sit of night shift, and a strategy and lifestyle behavior to return to the normal rhythm after finishing a sit of night shifts. In general, we found that good sleepers mentioned more numbers of strategy in all themes compared to the other group. For example, in this slide, we can see that both the group mentioned same strategy. However, good sleeper mentioned more strategy compared to the other group. To wrap up, the study highlights that good sleepers reported more strategy, and the most important strategy were creating structured and organized approaches to their sleep, prioritizing routine and approaches to their sleep, prioritizing routine also, and adopting their sleep environment for optimal rest. They not only adopted a greater variety of strategy, but also reflected on them more intentionally compared to the other group. These findings emphasize the potential of designing innovative, personalized sleep promotion strategy, empowering nurses to take control of their sleep health and ultimately enhance their well-being and performance. After identifying possible approaches that might be useful for nurses working irregular night shift to mitigate the effect of working irregular night shift, there are currently no definitive strategy or tailored intervention specifically designed for this target group. Moreover, the effectiveness of existing intervention has not been thoroughly established. To address this gap, a pilot intervention called Shift Your Sleep was developed to assess the visibility of implementing personalized sleep hygiene strategy tailored to the unique need of this group, as well as individual preferences and circumstances. We found that the nurse personalized the sleep hygiene strategy, and she integrated a new strategy to her existing habit, such as regulating sleep and wake times on days off, using a lavender oil, and more constantly considering power naps or staying physically active during night shift to remain alert. The intervention successfully encouraged the nurse to evaluate and improve her self-habit. She found the intervention stimulating and promoted her to reflect on ways to enhance her sleep. Additionally, the nurse felt that her sleep had benefited from the intervention. However, no significant improvement were observed in sleep quality metrics, including sleep duration, number and duration of interruptions, and sleep regularity, when comparing pre- and post-intervention measures. To conclude, results suggest that a personalized sleep hygiene strategy approach is a feasible, offering promising avenue for improving sleep health. For the future research, we recommend that the future research should focus on a larger sample size and extend the duration of the intervention to validate these findings. In a general discussion, the main lesson of this thesis is promoting health and well-being of nurses working irregular shift by improving sleep quality requires greater attention. Our intervention, Shift Your Sleep, can serve as a foundation for further interventions. For the recommendation for research, we recommend to conduct an NF1 studies, a series of NF1 study with multiple participants. After getting the result or the findings of this NF1 series, we recommend to conduct a randomized control trials to assess the generalizability of the finding, and also we recommend to use advanced tool measuring sleep quality, such as a wrist actigraphy, to replace the MFIT, and also to increase the skull power, we recommend to increase the participant and extend the duration of the intervention. Thank you so much for your attention. Now I will give the word back to the Prorector.
Thank you, Mr. Albakri, for a clear summary of your thesis. The opposition will now be opened by the chair of the assessment committee, Professor Rick Krutse. He is professor of behavior change and technology at Maastricht University. Professor Krutse.
Thank you very much. Dear candidates, my compliments for your work. Yeah, as a chair, I can say everybody was unanimously positive, so you're standing here for the right reasons. I think a very interesting topic that gets more and more attention also in public health, so that's very good. And I think you have a really very highly relevant priority population, and also a nice mix of research methods, starting off with a systematic review and then working towards an intervention. And that's also kind of the line that I want to ask my questions about, because I want to start with the systematic review. I looked at table 1, where I saw all the categorization you used. And the first thing that caught my eyes, that might be my bias, of course, was the behavior change methods that were mentioned. And I thought, okay, that's like a container. A lot of things fall under that umbrella. So I start looking at your definition, and then you say behavior change methods are based on learning theory. And then you give some examples like stimulus control, sleep schedules, and so on. So I thought like, okay, that's still very broad and encompasses a lot. And at the same time, I also saw, for example, that sleep education was also in there. And I would say sleep education, if it's done rightly, also contains behavior change methods. So can you shed some more light on what you mean with behavior change method and how that is different, for example, from sleep education?
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you so much for the compliment and the kind words, as well as for the questions. In regard to differentiate between the sleep quality and the behavior changing methods, we define the sleep education as an information that given to the healthy population to improve their sleep quality. And also we saw that also we included a sleep hygiene, also tips in terms of instructions. To differentiate between the behavior change methods and the sleep quality, we can see that the behavior change methods is mostly of the systematic reviews that we found, it's kind of given by the outside, like in instructions way, for instance, parents or nurses, where the most behavior change methods that we found that mostly conducted among infants. So to differentiate, we saw that the behavior change method given as instructions to do a certain strategy to improve the overall sleep quality or duration. In contrast with the sleep education, it's like an information given as general information regarding the sleep, the importance of sleep, or the sleep strategy tips in a structured manners, not in a step that done by outsider, for instance, the parent to the infant, like restricting sleep and schedule sleep times as well.
Yeah, so if I listen correctly to you, then I think you're saying two things. It's different kind of mode of delivery is different, and the target, the goal of why you do it is different.
No, I mean, when we defined the intervention for the sleep education, we saw that as an education, you're giving just an information to the other side, and it depends on completely on that person whether to seek or improve his or her health or sleep quality or duration. In the other side, it's kind of in the implementation of the strategy. It depends on somebody else to do it, and that's the mostly systematic reviews that we found regarding the behavior changes mostly implemented among infants. So the instruction we're giving to the parents, and who's doing the behavior, it's the outsider, not the same person.
Yeah, so because, for example, the example you give of stimulus control, if parents do that, and then, of course, depending on the child of the age of the child, then the child cannot help it because the parent has done it, basically.
Yeah, but the stimulus control, it's done not in infants specifically, it's done
in the environment.
Because in the behavior change methods, it's were conducted among mostly an infant, also athletes and nurses.
Okay, but would you then also agree with me that I think that, for example, then sleep education would target, for example, knowledge or attitude, those kind of things, while the stimulus control, for example, targets more things like habit change. It's basically targeting different determinants.
Yes, I agree with you. That can be also considered as in a sleep education, but the most behavior change methods that we found conducted were mostly in infant side. Mm-hmm. So this is why we approach and defining the behavior change in the way that we did.
Yeah. Okay, and then that brings you also to, because you give now, I think a couple of times you refer to the infants. Mm-hmm. How did you use these insights from this chapter 2 then in your intervention? Because there you're talking not with infants, but with nurses. Did you do anything with this kind of things like stimulus control and sleep schedules with these nurses as well, or did you forget about that in your intervention?
When we developed the intervention, before that, we tried to investigate how these nurses can cope with such intervention. Mm-hmm. And what we found from the qualitative study that the difference between good sleepers and poor sleepers, that poor sleeper has more attention to evaluate and do more strategy compared to the poor sleepers. And the strategy that they mentioned by good sleepers is more taking that, giving the control of the nurse to do such strategy or intervention to improve her or his sleep quality. In that regard, we investigate the literature, and also we use the strategy that comes out from our study, and we also go to the literature, and we found from a literature from the CDC and also from the NIH that most the strategy that given to nurses, it's just a sleep hygiene strategies, and the performance or willing to do the strategy we're giving back to the nurse.
Yeah, okay, and then because in chapter 4 was more observational in nature, right?
Yes,
so you're saying like, okay, so those who you qualify as good and bad,
yeah,
the ones that do good, they do it almost by nature. You use these right, quote-unquote, strategies, and then in your intervention, did you do something to stimulate the use of those things which are...
We encourage them. So in the intervention, we first in the baseline we measured their sleep, their sleep, and then based on their sleep, we developed an intervention, a tailored intervention based on the sleep quality metrics. For example, for the irregularity sleep, we saw that the nurse didn't have an irregular sleep times and wake times during the days off. So we recommend her to regulate her sleep times and wake times during the days off, and then we gave her a general sleep hygiene tips that she could perform during the intervention times.
Okay, thank you very much. That clarifies a lot. Thank you. And I give the word back to the prorector.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Krutse. The next opponent is not present here in the aula, but he is present online, and we can see him on that screen, and we see him on this screen. Dr. Alsheri, he is Assistant Professor of Public Health and Health Education at Al-Baha University in Saudi Arabia. Dr. Alsheri, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, dear candidate, I had two questions for you. Sleep health is very important, dealing with physical, mental, and social aspects of general health. My first question is regarding your intervention. How can the Shift Your Sleep intervention be further improved to enhance its effectiveness in the in addressing sleep quality challenges?
Esteemed opponent, thank you so much for your question. If I'm hearing your question correctly, you're saying that what kind of changes that we will do in the future intervention?
Yes, how can we improve the intervention itself?
Thank you so much for your question.
Because I believe you mentioned that the research, future research should include more people, more participants, but how can we improve the intervention itself?
Yes, thank you so much. At the end of the intervention, we recommend for adaptation for the intervention, including reminders for the nurse on her weekly plan regarding the sleep strategy, and also we recommend to increase the intervention duration to see whether the intervention works or not. Also, we recommend to use the wrist actigraphy replaced with the infant device, as we found that there is a few issues with using infant as the wrist actigraphy has more or less disturbances compared to the infant. So we would like to make these adaptation to the interventions, and also for the future research to increase the number of participants, also increase the intervention duration.
Okay, so at the end of the intervention, I believe you said it wasn't significant, the result, pre and post. So do you believe that these recommendations will improve future interventions regarding the intervention itself?
With the adaptation and also with changing the infant with the wrist actigraphy, I believe with increasing the intervention duration, I think we might have a significant improvement in the measurement, in the subjective measurement of sleep quality.
Okay, I also wanted to ask for your future research, specifically addressing sleep health. Are you thinking of doing specific research to the Saudi nursing workforce? And if so, what potential differences would you probably face? What other issues, or how would this intervention be improved for this specific target population?
Kind of, and also what I was thinking after finishing this PhD, that we could also implement this intervention among nurses who are working in Saudi Arabia, but currently I don't have any knowledge what kind of shift they work, whether they work a regular shift or fixed night shift or rotating shifts. However, we can adopt the intervention that we call shift your sleep based on the circumstances or the situation, the nurse work, what kind of shift they work over there. And also, I think also it's important to assess their sleep quality as well, and then how can we implement also our intervention over there. But it's important also to see whether to assess the visibility first and get more participants and increase the intervention duration to see if it's actually feasible also for the nurse.
I believe the most shifts or the hospital systems are similar, or there's similarities, but do you think there's some differences or some issues that you need to put in mind before you do intervention with this specific population?
From what I know, the shift system in Netherlands is completely different from other countries, for example, United States. But if in Saudi Arabia, if they have the same shift type that the nurses working here, I think it can be applicable as well for them.
Okay, thank you for your response. and I'll yield back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Alsheri. The next opponent is Professor Fred Zijlstra. He is Professor of Work and Organizational Psychology at Maastricht University. Professor Zijlstra.
Thank you, Pro-Rector. Dear candidate, well, first of all, I'd like to offer you my compliments for your study. Finishing such a study with a relevant and important topic has been mentioned before. And also, I would like to include your supervisory team with accomplishing this achievement. But I'm not only here to give compliments, but I'm here actually to discuss with you and ask some questions. Your study is about an intervention. And you also just in the presentation indicated that different strategies might have an effect, how people behave before they're going into the night shift. Yet you're using a model which is presented in chapter 1, figure 1, a model by Van Dijk and colleagues, which actually is suggests job demands have an effect on short-term effects and then long-term effects. Well, my first question would be actually, have you been examining other alternative models before you chose this model?
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you so much for the compliment and the questions. And regarding the question you asked, what we did first, we did an umbrella review, and then we identified our target group, and because the limited research on how these nurses sleep, what's the prevalence of sleep quality among these nurses, we investigated or we examined their sleep, and we saw that also the need for recovery can be a proxy as linked to other health problems and can evaluate the overall health.
Yeah, I understand that. But my question actually was, I mean, you have chosen for a certain model, workload capacity model by Van Dijk and colleagues. Before choosing this model, did you also examine and review from the literature alternative models?
We did not choose other model. We adopted this model to show that the sleep quality can play an important role either to moderate the effect of working a regular shift on the need for recovery in a short term, or to moderate the influence.
Okay. Well, if you would have been looking at the literature, in particular relating to workload capacity models, you would see that there are in principle two different sorts of models. One is what we call an exposure model, in that sense that job demands or stressors have a direct effect on people's health, etc. And there is a second model, an alternative model, which is called a strategy model. In that sense that job demands or stressors have an effect on people's health, but there is something in between, which is people can choose a different strategy to mitigate the effects of the demands. Well, basically, your study is about an intervention in which people can use different strategies. So would you agree with me that such a model would have been more appropriate for their study?
Yes. This is the first time for me to know such a model, and I think based on what you explained, I think it would work also. However, in the introduction, as I said before, we would like to show the role of a sleep quality in terms if we improve the sleep quality, we can mitigate the effect of the shift, working irregular shift on a nurse's working irregular shift, including night shifts.
No, of course, yes. But the model, the alternative model which I'm actually referring to, is also presented by colleagues of Van Dijk, I mean the same that are mentioned in this list. But that indicates that the strategy that people employ while dealing with the stressors, like in your case, different hygiene behaviors, different strategies regarding to prepare for the night shift, etc., would have different outcomes. So, and in your study and in your thesis, at the end, you do not evaluate whether the model that you've used was actually appropriate. And why not?
I agree with you that we did not evaluate whether the model that we adopted it can reflect the strategy, but it was from the study that we conducted, including the cross-sectional and also the qualitative. It was from explanatory purpose, or in a way that we would like to explore their sleep quality as well as their sleep strategies. And after identifying these kind of an objective or goals, we developed interventions to improve their sleep quality. We did not take in account the model that we included in the we presented in the introduction, but we put the model in the introduction to show only the effect of improving sleep quality can mitigate the impact of working irregular shift on the need for recovery.
Yeah, and well, basically, to some extent, you have included this in the model. Because you refer to workers' capacity, which seems to have an effect on either, well, the job demands and coping skills, and etc., but also seems to moderate the relationship between job demands and the short-term effects. Wouldn't that actually be the strategy component?
Yeah, I think so. What you meaning that the work capacity also influence the job demand as well?
Well, in fact, the effects of the job demands, because the worker's capacity is something that people can affect and influence by using a different strategy. You know, to give you an example, if I have to run 500 meters, I can run fast, or I can run slow, using a different strategy. The effects at the end will be different. So if I go very fast, I will be out of breath. But when I take my time, I will be quite relaxed. Can you see that strategy will have an effect on how people behave? So and therefore also on their capacity.
Yes, indeed, I agree with you, and this is why we claiming to personalize sleep hygiene strategies. And it's also we got that from the two reviews that we found, including Irish and Alfonsi, that they claim that the effectiveness of a sleep hygiene strategy depends on different factors, including age, gender, and genetics. I agree with you that the sleep strategy depends on the preference and also depends on the genetics. For instance, I can drink a coffee and go to sleep, and one of the tips that we're giving to the nurse that she can stop drinking caffeine 6 hours before going to bed, and it's I think we would say it depends on the genetics or the caffeine resistance that differs between a person to another person.
Yeah, so basically you do agree with me that the strategy component should be included before the sleep quality component.
Yes, indeed, I agree with you. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zijlstra. The opposition will be continued by Professor Matti Kroone. She is Professor of Prevention and Community Care at Maastricht University, and she is also Secretary of this committee. Professor Kroone, het woord is aan u.
Thank you. Dear candidate, I would also like to start with congratulating you with your supervisors with this important study. And I also read it with great interest, especially as I have been involved in research examining the effects of behavioral strategies in primary care, but then focused at patients with sleeping problems. So I was really interested in this part because you are looking at, say, a healthy population. But when I looked at your studies, I saw that in 2 chapters at least, there seems to be an age difference, and that in particular the shift workers with poor sleep quality, they were often younger. So, and I also understood from another study that you also mentioned in your discussion from Robbins, is with you, that in general in interventions the population that participate from the shift workers are younger. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts about this? What do you think? Is it okay that they are younger? Don't you want to have the older ones? Or how do you reflect on this?
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you so much for the compliment words and questions. Indeed, we found in the cross-sectional study that the poor sleep quality more prone to be younger. And the explanation that we have is that the older, the more they get older, they get used to the kind of night shift, the irregularity of night shift, and they developed more in a strategy to cope with this kind of a shift. And also, we can assume that that we found that there isn't a difference in their sleep quality. I think because the adaptation of the old nurses with the kind of shifts, and they developed already in a strategy to cope with these kind of shifts, which is the irregular night shifts.
So they are, but I understood also they developed already some structures to deal with these shifts. But then, would that say that normally every nurse will actually develop their own structure of how to deal with these shifts, and that it might be that you only have to focus on this first period when they started as nurses?
Yeah, I think when we wanted to focus only in younger, I think, and we found that the older has more sleep quality compared to the younger. I think we would focus on them because they still growing, and also their circumstances, the life circumstances that they influence their life and choices may be different from the old nurses, and how I think the speed in coping with the working irregular night shift, it would be different from those who already got inside the environment and adapt to the irregularity of shift.
So you would say, okay, if you were, for example, the MUMC, you would say, okay, start with this younger group with an intervention.
Yes, okay. I would go with that. Yes.
Okay, but I also understood that actually the long-term exposure to shift work appear to have the highest effect on health. So how would you say, okay, that then maybe we also should do something with the older ones, but then maybe make it a comprehensive intervention, not only looking at sleep, but also other things?
Yeah, I think when we wanted to improve the overall health, we cannot include everything in our intervention. No. However, we thought that the sleep quality is important to improve an individual level, because when we look to the institutional level as a researcher, we cannot make that influence to change the irregularity of shifts. However, in the individual level, we thought that it's important to improve the sleep quality, as improving the sleep quality would mitigate the impact of shift work. Regarding the old age, I think they deserve also an attention, but I think the priority would those who have more attention is the younger, as they still working irregular night shifts.
Okay, thank you. That's already. But then I have another question also about the target group, actually, because in your N of 1 study. You had planned to have five participants, but you only had one. But I was wondering, what was the reason that this participant wanted to participate in this intervention? Yeah,
the participants that she wanted to participate. She was participated in a previous study, and in the previous study there wasn't a question regarding whether you wanted to improve your sleep. And when she intend to improve her sleep quality, we got her as a participant, and then we introduced the study, the whole study, to her, and she agreed to participate in the study as she thought that her sleep quality is not good as she figured out after the study.
Yeah. I understood. I read because actually she didn't have that much sleep. Her sleep quality and duration was actually quite okay, also at baseline.
Indeed. There is a tendency for decreasing the sleep duration compared to the pre-measure. But I think when she started to regulate her sleep in post-intervention during the days off, this is maybe the reason why we found there is a tendency decreasing in sleep duration compared to the pre-measurement.
Oh, so that's right. But then actually, it stayed in my mind, this thing, because I was wondering if you would, so if you had the opportunity to follow up more participants, maybe 10, also in this N-of-1 study, how would you approach it? Would you then adjust the participant selection maybe, or how? What are your thoughts about this?
I think when you offer our intervention, we cannot limit it to a certain persons because we thought that their sleep already good in the baseline, as we may see that the irregularity that we found in this nurse is not irregular during the days off, so she might be benefited from the intervention as well. But I think in the long term, I think we would like to have a significant improvement in sleep quality, but we cannot say, this is your sleep measurement is a good baseline, you didn't need the intervention.
Yeah, I was wondering whether you would do that.
No, I won't do that because it's not fair as well.
But then, so you won't do that. But then, still, I was wondering, would you then maybe also add different measures also for sleep quality? Because actually, she said that she didn't, thought that she didn't sleep that well. So would you, for example, combine it with some experience sampling during the N-of-1 study? So that you not only do some diaries, but also some experience sampling, for example.
This is also another option to improve the implementation. Thank you so much. We didn't thought that it would be also possible to improve our intervention in a coming future, but also this is also it could be possible to improve the study design as overall.
Do I still have time for one? Yeah. And then I also thought about the intervention, because I was wondering, what is now actually your intervention? Because is it now the intervention, is that you say the first part, that you provide them with, that they make a plan and how they want to structure? Or is it the whole, all the diaries and all the measurements, is that the intervention, or is it only that first part in which you give them the strategies that they can use to improve
During the post-intervention, we assess their sleep during the baseline, and after assessing the sleep quality on the baseline, we tailored the strategy that related to the sleep measurements. And during the post-intervention, we give them sleep strategy diaries questions and weekly plans they could make at the beginning of each week, and filling the questionnaires on daily basis regarding what's the sleep strategy they choose to perform compared to the first choice or the weekly plan. And then we gave them.
And is that part of the? Is that actually?
Yeah, this is part
of the intervention.
Yes,
then?
this is a part of the intervention.
That's not the research. Then it's the intervention.
Yes, it is part of the intervention as well, to make them reflect upon what kind of choice, the choice they use, for instance, in the previous week, and what kind of strategy they would also perform in the next week as well.
So it's quite an intensive intervention. So I was wondering, how would you think about when you would when you would ask, for example, the hospital to implement it, how do you think that will work? Because it's quite an intensive.
Indeed, I agree with you that it's intensive and a lot of work.
Yeah.
However, when we interviewed the nurse at the end of the intervention, we asked her a question regarding filling the questionnaires, the daily questionnaires and the weekly plan. She did not respond in a way that it's so difficult to fill and it's not bothersome her in filling the daily strategies or the weekly plan. I think it's important if the person wants to improve his or her health, to invest in him or herself to improve the sleep quality, because the willingness to be participated in intervention, it takes an effort, and we explain that in our protocol, and the person who wants to implement the intervention will invest in him or in herself to improve their sleep quality and overall health at the end.
You won't consider it, make it some kind of stepped care approach, for example, saying, okay, we first start 2 weeks, and if it's okay, then you are finished, and the other ones.
I mean, this could be an possible approach, but for instance, if the nurse would be knowing that she will filling another questionnaires after the first week, we might lose her because she's not getting the full picture of the interventions.
Okay. Thank you. I think you answered my questions quite well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Krohne. The fifth and last opponent is Dr. Anneke van den Driessen. She is researcher participatory research and sleep health promotion at Ghent University in Belgium. Dr. van den Driessen.
Thank you, Pro-Rector. Dear candidate, I want to join the rest of the opponents in congratulating you with this important work. There's not too much research in sleep health promotion, so I'm glad you're a colleague in that way. I enjoyed already discussing with you sleep research at the ISBMPA Congress in 2019, but I look forward to discussing it now also in 9 minutes or 8. So I'm gonna try and not ask questions about chapter 5, although I think it's very interesting, the intervention you have made. But first I have a question about chapter 2, the umbrella review, which I already referred to a lot in my work, so thank you for that. I was really interested in the little part about psychotherapy, where you mentioned the most important thing of psychotherapy would be cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, because that's something I've been struggling with every time that I look up systematic reviews in which I try to search for, is there already a good sleep health promotion intervention, yes or no? And for me, I always find it a bit difficult to see the difference between CBTI interventions and the kind of interventions we as health promoters make. Opponent Crutzen already also explained it a bit. We use behavioral change techniques in our work. And in fact, when I talk to psychologists that also do cognitive behavioral therapy, they explain it a bit the same as we do. Like in my intervention for sleep health promotion in adolescents, we target attitudes and self-efficacy, social influence, and in CBTI they also do it. So what, according to you, would be the biggest difference between health promotion through behavioral change techniques and CBTI? And what can we learn from that other field in psychology?
Esteemed opponent, thank you so much for the compliment and kind words, as well as your question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you would like to see the difference between the psychology, the cognitive behavior change, and the CBTI. I think from what we found in the umbrella review that the CBTI mostly targeting a diagnosed person with sleep problems. In our umbrella review, we targeted a healthy population. I think it's the difference is that between the both, from my point of view, is that it's investigated the behavior related and thoughts, the thoughts to changing the behavior in the CBTI. But for the cognitive behavioral therapy, we did not found a lot of interventions that targeting healthy population. I think because of its maybe the cost of implementing these kind of intervention in a general population.
Yeah, I can follow that, and in my own thesis I also said that is the biggest difference, the diagnosis, yes and no. But then what I was thinking about, first of all, would the nurses be like diagnosable with certain sleep problems, do you think?
Based on the cross-sectional study, we asked whether they've been treated for sleep problems. Well, treated, it means that they've been diagnosed, and most of the nurses say no, that they have not been diagnosed with a sleep problem, or they have not been treated with of the sleep problems. But I think in a long run, we can see, and there is an evidence that there is a scientific effect of working irregular shift in the long term, which increasing the hormones, and there is also a chronic disease have been associated with the working shifts, including gastrointestinal disease, and a lot of systematic reviews. They also point to that and conclude that in the long term, there's a really harmful impact regarding working shift on health.
Yeah, I also believe it would be possible to diagnose some of these populations. As I understand, you are able to diagnose a sleep problem when you experience it more than 3 months, more than 3 times a week. So maybe yes, and that would maybe lead me to my follow-up question on that. Since your intervention, now I'm again at chapter 5, since your intervention is very individually targeted, because for me, I always target groups, but this intervention is a bit individually targeted. Maybe it would be an idea to also use some of the more psychological techniques, I don't know, since they have been proven very effective.
That could be an aside also to include in our intervention, but I think it will be increase the duration of the scale that we're going to use to assess the psycho determinants, and also what's kind of the tips that we're going to give to the nurses, and which is kind of a burden, also increase the burden. But in our intervention, we target based on personalized approach, considering the factors that I mentioned, that Irish and Fluency also said and mentioned, the age and gender and genetics. But I think overall we would stick with our approach using sleep hygiene strategy, that we want to give the nurse the over control in performing this strategy that we offer.
Okay, thank you. Maybe a short question regarding chapter 3. You included certain confounders in your analysis.
Yes.
I heard you saying there's genetics and age also at hand in sleep behavior. In my study, I work with adolescents. I ask about puberty. And it made me think if it would be useful in your population to ask about other hormonal changes such as menopause as a confounder. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think we cannot exclude that as a confounding variables, but in our study, we included as a confounding variables the age, gender, living situation, and also being treated for sleep problems or not, and also smoking from the behavior side, smoking, and also exercise more than 30 minutes. We cannot include a lot of confounding variables. We measured these confounding variables based on the literature that the literature confirmed that these confounders may influence the sleep quality, so we consider them as confounding variables, but we cannot deny also the important role of the factors that would influence also the
Mr. Albakri, as you see and hear, the time for defending your thesis has passed. The committee will now withdraw to discuss the quality of your thesis and in particular the quality of your defense. And I request that you remain here until we return here with the results of our deliberation.
Thank you.
The PhD defense has now ended. The degree committee will debate the candidate's performance behind closed doors. This process usually takes about 10 minutes.
Long road to the south side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goals only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. I know what's on the line. I know you know that I can't read your mind. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. Cause I'll go the extra mile. Long road to the south side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goals only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. On the dash, got my laces tied. Long road, I don't waste no time. Break rules because fate decides. With the team and we chase the light. I make a move, fall down, shake it off. I hate to lose, bad branch, break it off. No room for negativity, praise and love. Prepare for deep part cause we're taking off. Get the mileage, traveling so far from home. Gathering knowledge, other connections. I put the time in to get everything I ever hoped for. It's a challenge and we all in. It's a better future that we go for. And even though these nights seem long, I know that I am never on my own. Know you've won the battle once you've grown. South side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goals only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. Long road to the south side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goals only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. Cause I'll go the extra mile.
Mr. Albakri. The committee here present has assessed the quality of your thesis, and in particular the quality of your defense. And in view of its positive verdict, and taking into account the qualifications that you have previously acquired, the committee has decided to grant you the degree of doctor. Dr. Meertens is authorized to confer upon you this academic distinction in accordance with Dutch university custom and law, and invite your supervisor now to take the floor. Dr. Meertens.
Do you promise to work in accordance with the principles of scientific integrity at all times, to be careful and honest, transparent, independent and responsible?
Yes, I promise.
By the authority vested in us by law and in conformity with the decision of the committee here present, I hereby confer upon you, Uthman Albakri, the degree of doctor and grant you all the rights attached to this by custom and law. As evidence of this, I now present you with the degree certificate signed by the rector, the secretary and the other members of the committee, and affixed with the official seal of the university. You need to practice a bit more. Here you are. Dear Ahmad, dear Doctor, oh, this is not true. This is not true. I brought the wrong one, or the wrong one was printed. There were some problems. I will now do it by heart, but I shortly explained because there was a problem with the printers and all the ICT in Maastricht University, and therefore this was a real big problem. And I sent you the wrong one. Okay, so I now try to do it all by heart, which is of course more difficult. Dear Uthman, dear, the first to say, not dear candidate anymore during this ceremony, but dear Dr. Uthman, and you deserved it. I really like to see during these last years, and I think the other supervisors will agree, the progress you really made during the time you stayed at Maastricht University. As a bachelor, you did in Saudi Arabia. You did your master both on public health in the US, and then you came to us for a scholarship and doing your PhD at Maastricht University. And as I said, you really made a lot of progress there. I think you really learned a lot during this time. In the beginning, you had to find out a bit what was exactly expected from you as a PhD, but in the end, you learned a lot. You used all kinds of different methods, a qualitative study, a quantitative study, a systematic review, and an N-of-1 study, which is relatively new in the area of health promotion in general, but which makes really possible also in an N-of-1 study to test it statistically. So you did a lot, and you learned about doing statistics, about academic rigor, about writing. You really did a lot of work and did it rather well. You really came into the process. Furthermore, of course, the colleagues and I, we all here learned you know as a really a social guy, a pleasant guy, and also a nice person to work with, who was always in for a chat or in for a laugh. And that was very, very good. What we also experienced is that it didn't matter at all to you how we all pronounced your name. It was pronounced as Uthman, as Uthman, as Osman, as Usman, and as long as you knew that it referred to you, you were totally okay with that. And I tried it also many times to really train how it should be, how it should sound, but I never really made it, I think. But you didn't matter. It didn't matter at all to you. You were fine with everything. And what I also remember as a kind of anecdote is that at certain times when it was really winter and a lot of snow, and it was freezing even more as it does these weeks, then people were saying to you, you are certainly not used to that coming from the desert, from Saudi Arabia. And then you said, no, the place where I come from, it's even colder. And that's indeed exactly the case. You come from the southwest region in the mountains, and there it used to be even colder, sometimes at least. So, but that was a very surprising fact for many people. So you remained really very optimistic always, and very positive. And that was very during your PhD. But that is not to say that it was always easy. And of course it was not easy because PhD bring all kind of complications. The umbrella review took far more time than expected. It was really very intensive and more complicated as we ever thought. And when you just chose the topic of doing research among nurses in the hospital, the COVID crisis came. So that was not really the right moment to go into the hospital and ask nurses for their cooperation in some research. In fact, it was not good for any research at all, for doing it wherever. But luckily, there was a master student, Eimert Kant and I just had Nick Smeets, who is in the audience as well. And he had just gathered a lot of data in the hospital on nurses and on sleep. And that was really very great. It was more than he could manage for his master thesis. And so you could use his data and at least go on. And then last study, this intensive N-of-1 study, developing something quite new in the field. Also that was very challenging. But you managed, and you did it all with resilience. And then I'm not talking even of the personal situation where you are still in right now. In the last phase of the PhD, almost finished, your daughter became ill, and it was quite complicated to even know what it was for the. But when the doctors in the hospital here had just seen how it had the right diagnosis, and also maybe a treatment who worked, at that moment you had to go back to Saudi Arabia because all ended. And then you had the stress of all the things coming together. Moving back to Saudi Arabia, ending the PhD, arranging the last things, and also, and of course, most of all, the problem of a child that really was very much in pain. And I really have a lot of respect for how you manage that together with your wife, Huda, And I really think that you managed that very well. And yeah, you showed a lot of resilience, and maybe you have that of your mother. I was thinking, I just heard, I didn't realize that before, but his mother raised 16 children in total, and now 85. She just joined us online, I think. Hello, and so it is very. I think without also a father who died relatively young. So that's really a great challenge, and also a lot of respect for her. So I have the impression that maybe the Laudatia became a bit longer without paper. But in the end, I think it is very great what you all did. You really did a great job. It all led to a very nice PhD thesis, and here probably a US speaker would say an excellent thesis, but here we are a bit more holding back with compliments. So very nice thesis, and already 3 papers published. And the first paper already has more than 100 citations. So I think that's worth a big compliment as well. So in the end, congratulations for you, of course, but also I will also broaden these congratulations to your wife, Huda, also to your children. Maybe Rihanna can already understand. Savannah probably not, but and also to your, of course, to your 10 sisters and 5 brothers, and to your mother. And why not? We are all together, everybody watching here or online. Okay, that was it. Congratulations, you deserve it.
Esteemed Dr. Albakri, dear Uthman, it's my great pleasure to congratulate you with your doctorate, and I congratulate you also on behalf of Maastricht University. In addition to that, I would like to share some impressions of the committee with you. First of all, I think we have seen a very clear presentation of the summary of your thesis, and we call that a layman's talk, and I think indeed that not only people here in the aula, but also the followers of the live stream have very well understood what you have done the last couple of years doing your PhD study. And with respect to your thesis, I think that your thesis is really has a relevant topic. It's well worked out, and it has also used different designs of approaches. So you have applied many methods, and also you were very well able to manage all these different methods in these studies. With respect to and also we have seen that the majority of your studies have already been published in scientific literature, and maybe some more studies and more reports will follow. With respect to your defense, we have really enjoyed an open and interesting discussion with you. And you have also shown that you are very knowledgeable about your studies and also about the scientific character of these studies. And we are very satisfied with your defense. I do not only congratulate you, but also your 3 supervisors with this result in terms of your thesis, the publications, and the defense that we have heard today. And I would like to congratulate Professor Meertens and Professor Kant and Professor Gabriel with this result. Congratulations. And also, of course, I would like to include in my congratulations your wife, who is present here, and your children, of which I think they see it online. And also, I would like to congratulate your colleagues, other members of your family, and of course, your mother, and other members of the family. And I would like to include, indeed, the followers of the live stream and the people who are present here in the aula. that have a relationship with you. Before I close this ceremony, I would like to thank all the members of both committees, the assessment committee and also of this degree committee. Thank you very much for critically reading the manuscript and having good questions and have a scientific discussion here in the opposition. Thank you very much for your input and your and preparation of this discussion. And in particular, I would like to thank the external members of the committee, Professor van den Driessen from Belgium and Dr. Alsheri from Saudi Arabia. And I would like to invite you, Dr. Alsheri, to congratulate the young doctor, Dr. Albakri. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor. It's my honor to congratulate you, Dr. Uthman Albakri. Alf Mabruk.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations in Arabic. I was just saying it's a congratulations in Arabic. You were well deserved. Alf Mabruk, Uthman.
Thank you, Dr. Alsheri. And thank you for your joining us and being a member of this committee. Thank you very much. Before I close the ceremony, I have an invitation for you here and for people here in the aula. We will have a reception after this ceremony in the Refter. It's quite easy to find. If you leave this aula, you go to the left, and after the elevator, you go to the right, and then we will join you because we are taking after the ceremony a picture here with also Dr. Alsheri still on the screen, so we make a picture here, and also we will take a picture on the stairs in the hall. Hereby I close this academic ceremony.